Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Cars with Willow and welcome to my latest financial mistake. And no, I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about that. Yes, you saw it right everyone, I've bought another MGTF. You might be quite confused, you might be wondering why on earth I would do such a thing. And so are the neighbours, I'm sure. This one's been sat in my driveway now doing nothing for a few weeks and I've not really done much to it. But there is a story behind it. So, why have I bought another MGTF? It's exactly the same as the one I have. You're thinking, mate, you're crazy. What on earth are you thinking? Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I was browsing Facebook Marketplace not too long ago, and I saw it pop up, and it was pretty cheap. It was listed as a non-runner or running but with issues, so I knew that it wasn't a particularly clean car, and it was pretty cheap, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get it. So I messaged the guy straight away. I said, yeah, I'll take it. Got someone to go and pick it up on a trailer. And now here it is on my driveway. And to be honest, I regret it. I sort of bought it thinking, yeah, I'll be able to fix it up. I'll be able to find what's wrong with it and get it running again and then maybe sell it for a bit more than I bought it for. And to be fair, I probably can fix the issues that are with the engine. I can probably get it running again. However, there's other things on this car which I didn't know about, and it's not the seller's fault because I didn't ask. I just went in there all guns blazing and said, yeah, I'll take it. So what this video is really is 5 things that you should look out for when buying an MGTF for yourself. And I'm speaking from experience now because I've gone and bought one and I didn't ask about these things and they've come to bite me. So 5 things you should look out for when you're buying an MGTF. Before I get started, this car did actually come with quite a few goodies and that kind of thing, which I've not even had a chance to look at yet. So I'm going to take all this stuff out and see what came with the car. I mean, the first thing that has to be said about the interior is that it's actually pretty nice. The last person's obviously quite a fan of blue. Got these lovely suede TF seats in blue, which are nice, and they've got a nice blue center console surround, which is pretty smart. The blue door card inserts, which again, pretty smart, and the hardtop roof is also lined with a very fetching blue felt as well, which does actually look really tidy and it's clean as well. What's in the glove box? Got the owner's handbook, that's good. We've got, oh, what's this? Hay fever and allergy relief. Perfect. Still in date. What's this? Oh, yes. Oh, look at these. Oh, what a pair of sunglasses, lovely. Result. Well, if nothing else, got a new pair of sunglasses. Let's have a little look to see what's in here then. A nice box of goodies here, full of all sorts of stuff. I can't wear those sunglasses, give me a headache. All kinds of bits and bobs of some description. There's a box there that's not even been opened. That's curious. New aux belt, nice. Aerial, nice. I think basically what happened is the previous owner bought all this stuff and they were trying to sort of customise it, add their own touches to the car, and then the issues arose with the engine and they basically got fed up with it. I think they sort of spent a bit of money to try and find out what the issue was and then just potentially cut their losses really, which is why I've got all the parts to work, but they've not been fitted because, yeah, I think they perhaps just got a bit sick of it, to be honest. So, 5 things to look out for when buying an MGTF. It's quite tricky because, as with any used car, when you're buying it, there's a lot of things you really should check. And I'm a poor example because I checked absolutely nothing on this car before I bought it. In fact, I didn't even see it. I just saw some pictures on Facebook and just said, yep, I'll have it. Didn't even go to look at it, which is really issue number 1 with buying a used car, full stop. Never do that if you can avoid it. It was a fairly low risk involved though. I spent very little on this car. Even if I can't sell any of it at all, you know, it's a small loss really in the grand scheme of things. The reality is I can probably sell it as parts for about what I bought it for and get my money back that way. So it really was a low risk endeavour. But nevertheless, when you're buying one of these cars, there's 5 pretty crucial things specifically about these cars that you should check before you buy it. Number 1 being the head gasket. And of course, I've mentioned this in previous videos, and if you know anything about MGs and Rovers with the K-Series engine, you know the head gasket is prone to failing. So how can you check this when you're potentially going to buy one of these cars? Well, there's a few things that you can look out for. Number 1 would be the coolant levels. What you want really is a car where the coolant level is around halfway up the tank. It shouldn't be much lower than that, and if it is, there's a chance obviously that the owner just hasn't taken that good care of it, or there's a chance that there's a coolant leak somewhere. So if we take a look at the coolant tank on this MGTF that I've rather naively purchased, you can see that the tank itself is quite yellow, which isn't necessarily a problem, but you can see as well that it's starting to perish in places, and actually, you know, it could be quite seriously weakened in some places. So that's something, you know, that you potentially be looking to replace down the line. But if you look at the coolant inside, you can see it on the side of the tank that the coolant level is good. So that's a green tick. And actually the colour of the coolant is pretty good as well. There's no sort of residue floating on the surface or anything like that. If you saw some sort of yellowy mayonnaise-like substance floating perhaps on the top of the coolant, that would be a clear sign of head gasket failure. But the coolant level here is fine. And if we check the oil, what you're looking for really with oil in any car is a nice golden colour, almost like honey. This oil, as you might be able to see, is pretty black, which just means that the oil's old. That's not necessarily a problem. What you really do want to look out for is if the oil is sort of browny in colour. A brown oil, or sort of a coffee coloured oil, again could indicate a problem with the head gasket because it indicates the oil is mixing with the coolant. Another potential indicator of a head gasket failure on one of these cars would be white smoke coming out of the exhaust. Now, you need to let the engine get up to temperature, have it running for a few minutes so that the needle on the coolant temperature gauge is just below halfway. That's where it should sit, all being well. If you get up to that temperature and you've still got white smoke coming out the exhaust, again, that's another problem or potential problem indicating head gasket failure, because what you've got there is coolant basically evaporating and coming out of the exhaust system. The second thing to look out for when you're potentially going to buy one of these cars is corrosion. It's a British car. It was built in Birmingham, so there's going to be these kind of problems with it, as there was with any car really that's been driven around in the UK for the last 20 or so years. Some pretty common places where these cars will start to corrode. You can see here there's really quite a lot of bubbling starting to show through on the paint, which means the bodywork underneath is getting pretty rotten. And you can see as well the wheel arches they're actually really solid still, but there is some bubbling beginning to take place, which means sooner or later it's going to want some attention particularly if you want this car to hold its value. Now, if we swing around to this side of the car, you can conveniently see that I've removed the wheel, which has given me better access to film the sills. The sills is a really common place for these cars to start to corrode. There's these gaps sort of between the panel and the wheel arch here, where I can probably get some for you actually. Dirt starts to gather and it gets trapped. And also if you've got wet dirt getting trapped in between the bodywork and the arch, you will start to see corrosion if you don't deal with it. And actually, if you get a corrosion checker, or in other words a screwdriver, and give it a little poke, you can see pretty straight away that that's just falling apart, it's crumbling, which is one thing that I didn't know when I bought this car. I didn't have a clue about these, but I didn't ask about them, so I can't blame the seller. But look how easily that's picking apart. That's really rotten. And by the way as well, I'm not suggesting that you should take a screwdriver when you go and look at a car if it's not yours. Of course you can't go and poke someone else's car, but it is worth getting down on the ground if you can and having a look at the state of the sills. Oh dear, not good at all. The third thing to look out for would be any kind of water leaks on the exterior. So we're not talking about the engine or the mechanics now, we're talking about things like around the windows, around where the roof meets the window and that kind of thing. Making sure that there's a really good seal around that. Checking inside for things like mould or dampness as well is a really important thing to do, because obviously that would be a pretty strong indicator of some kind of water ingress. If we look under the bonnet, you can see this sort of plastic black snorkel sort of thing, which is air intake for the interior blowers. A lot of MGs tend to leak from this area. Basically what happens over time is this seal that is around sort of between the snorkel and the chassis, that perishes over time, and you have water running down, like rain for example, running down through these scuttles down the chassis, and then it'll seep inside the sort of the blower duct, and from there the water will travel down through the sort of the air channels. So where the air would come out the blowers, the water will run down the side of those channels and seep into the carpet in the footwell. So really what you want to be checking for is these carpets down here in the footwell. Ideally, maybe during some wet weather, you'd be going to look at a car and you'd notice, these carpets are a little bit damp. These aren't, but the car you're looking at, they might be. And that would be a sign of a water leak, which isn't a major problem. I can fix that, which means you can fix it too. But it's something you want to think about when you're buying the car, i.e., well, do I need to maybe knock 50 quid off the price because this work needs doing. Number 4, check what tyres it's wearing. Of course, this is something you should be checking when you're buying any car, especially a used one. But you want to check that the tyres are a pretty reputable brand. These are Falcon ZX 310s, I believe. Yep, which is a great tyre. These are perfect tyres for this car. They're what I have on my main MGTF, I suppose you would say. Great tyres and good in the wet as well. You want to check the wear, of course, and check that they've worn evenly, but again, that's not specific to this car. That's something you should absolutely be checking on any used car. But that's one very big green tick for this one. Great tyres all round. And finally, number 5, check the condition of the soft top, which on this particular TF is pretty hard. It's got the removable hardtop on it. There is a soft top in my house which came with it. It's not attached to the car, but check for things like little holes. Check as well the gap between the window and the roof here, whether it's got the hardtop or the soft top on. It's normal, by the way, for there to be a bit of a gap there, so don't be alarmed if you do see that Now, if you are in the market for one of these cars, then you'll soon discover that some of the soft tops have a glass window in the back. These are a great thing to have because they're much more hard wearing, it feels a little bit more premium, and of course you do have the heater strips then as well for when those frosty mornings kick in, which in the UK is most of the year, it seems to be. So there's 5 things you really should be looking out for when you're buying one of these cars. And I suppose the big question is, should any of those things deter you from buying one of these cars? It really depends. It depends on the price that you're paying. It depends on whether you're willing to do any work or whether you're just looking for a car that you can get out and drive straight away. It's important to note as well that I'm not a mechanic, and I'm certainly not a specialist when it comes to fixing and maintaining these cars. But I do have a few years experience of them now, and so I do know the common pitfalls, the things to look out for, that kind of thing. So I am going to caveat this video by saying that the things I've mentioned, such as the symptoms of head gasket failure or condition of the subframe, that kind of thing, I'm speaking from my experience. Those things, you know, if you see oil leak on the head of the engine, or you see some white smoke coming out the exhaust, that doesn't necessarily mean the head gasket's failed. You need to understand that. It's just something to look out for. It's a potential red flag. So that just about sums up today's video. I hope you found it useful. Perhaps if you're in the market for one of these cars, or perhaps if you have one of these cars yourself and you're wondering perhaps how you should maintain it best, that kind of thing, here's 5 things to look out for. Just remember those 5 things. And remember as well, my advice, don't buy one without looking at it first. That's probably the best bit of advice I could give. Always have a look at it. Even if the seller, is really transparent about the condition of the car, it's always worth going and having a look for yourself, so that you can spot the things that perhaps even the seller hasn't spotted themselves. If you have found this video useful, /interesting, /funny, doubt it, but maybe, please do leave a like and subscribe so that I can continue to grow this channel and bring more videos just like this one. Take care.